All right, I call this meeting to order at 3:02 p.m. and I ask staff to call the roll.
Adam Hopkins.
Here.
Barry Kroll. Dan Palmer.
Here.
John Getz. Jay Doherty.
First item of business is approval of the April 4th, 2024 minutes.
So moved.
Second.
I ask staff to call the roll.
Barry Kroll.
Here.
Dan Palmer.
Yes.
John Getz. Jay Doherty.
Yes.
Adam Hopkins.
Yes. Next item on our agenda is public comments. Anyone here would like to address this committee, please step up to the podium.
I have comments I received via email.
Sure.
Anna Carabajal, 201 West Country Drive. I love the wayfinding signs, especially in the high bike traffic areas such as Stearns and South Bartlett Road. However, there is actually not a safe bike route leading to downtown from the south. So we're leading cyclists to unprotected, unsafe routes. I would love to see bike routes added and or expanded along South Bartlett Road and Prospect Road into the downtown area, as are recommended on the current and previous Bartlett bike plan. Both South Bartlett Road and Prospect Road are high bike traffic routes to and from Metra and the downtown. Both roads, especially Bartlett Road, have cars at speeds that are dangerous for the road cyclists, especially vulnerable individuals such as children and teens. Both road are bike routes for students attending Eastview Middle School. Therefore, these routes should be of the highest priority for future projects. The Bartlett Bike Plan has great recommendations for existing gaps on both these roads. Thank you.
Is that all? If there's no other comments from anyone in the audience, old business, new business. First update is the Bartlett Park District update. No one's here from the Park District? Then we'll move on to the bike path maintenance update. I know at the last meeting we asked for a few updates, so.
I just want to start by saying, I just want to introduce myself or reintroduce myself. My name is Nick Tellerico. I am the village engineer. So just the updates for all the current bike path projects that are going around in town right now, all of which may not be listed in your packet there, but the Brewster Creek bike paths should be wrapping up here in the next few weeks. They've completed up to Stearns, so there was a final restoration going on, so we should be wrapping up that one here shortly. Just trying to find the memo real quick. Later this year, if in-house crews have time towards the end of the season, they're going to continue resurfacing the path on Stearns from Newport to the west, all the way up to Bittersweet, where we had previously resurfaced with the water main project. So that's scheduled tentatively for the end of the season. Let's see here, bike path under Route 59. We are currently in the process of trying to get access through private property just to get soil borings underneath that bridge, so then we can continue in the design process. We just put a letter out to the gentleman's home up there on Route 59 who we need to use to access his property, so we're just waiting to hear back from that. But that ball is rolling. The design process is moving on. Metra is currently still designing that Naperville Road crossing. I do know that the Grasslands paving contractor was out there paving Naperville Road this week. They did finish out there. The next plan was to, they're going to pave the bike path along Naperville Road to the north. Unfortunately, it will just dead end there at the creek because they're still working on permitting to get the bridge over the creek there. So the path will be paved on both sides, but it won't connect. We've been talking with the developer out there to figure out is it really the safest thing to do to take people, let's say, heading north on Naperville Road and then bring them to the street right in the most, the narrowest part of the road right there by the guardrail. So, we're kind of working through that. We just don't want to dump the bikers into that really narrow area there between the guardrail at the creek. So we'll have to just take a look at that when they start to pave it. It might just dead end up there at the creek there. And then later this summer, late summer, early fall, we're gonna have our pavement preservation project going on. That project, we just spray pavement preservers on it to prolong the life of the pavements. We do that for our roads, and then we do it for the bike paths around town too. Engineering, we looked into there were some of the on-street bike lanes that were suggested in the biking, the bike plan. We did go through, I have a list here, I don't know if we can go through them one by one if you'd like, but there was just a few of them. When we want to stripe a bike lane on a road, we want to make sure that we have the width there, because like we just did the striping on Spalding, we had a 4-foot bike lane on each side for each direction, and we were still able to maintain a good lane width there. On some of these residential streets that were, suggested here, such as Bennington and Lakewood Mill, Westridge Boulevard, the widths of those roads, we only have about 25 feet. So if we put a bike lane, a dedicated bike line on either side, we won't have enough room for a full lane of traffic for each direction. So I think that striping on-street bike lanes on some of these roads are not going to work. I think maybe signage and more maybe share the road type, warning signs would work. But we are going through that list, and if one is feasible and it makes sense to do it this year with our striping program, we definitely will do that. There are a couple other ones I know that we may want to hold off just until we resurface it. I know there was one suggested on Fairfax, which I think is a great connection. We may be resurfacing Fairfax in 2025, so I would just want to maybe hold off until then to include that. So we're gonna, in engineering, we are paying attention and making sure that we're incorporating these on-street bike paths with our striping programs and incorporating them in our resurfacing projects. So just want you all to know that we are looking at it, and we are doing, I'll do what I can when I think it makes, the most amount of sense financially, and, so.
As far as like on-street parking, when, let's say we do it in a residential neighborhood, does that affect on-street parking for people, like in front of their houses?
In theory, if I were to stripe a designated bike lane, we would want to, hopefully people wouldn't park there, but yeah, if you had a bike lane down a residential street, especially with all the driveways in there, would you just keep it straight? Would you gap every driveway? We need to put a whole bunch of no parking signs up to make sure that lane is stayed cleared all the time. Like on Mayflower and Struckman, we did that a couple years ago. We just striped almost an ambiguous space. We didn't sign it as a bike signage just because people do park there, but we also say, you can still park there, so it's kind of like a shared area, which seems to have been working out, I think, gives everybody a place to ride and then also a place to park if they need to, so.
Yeah.
Is the maintenance department on schedule with their normal routine projects? I guess my question that I'm leading to is that, will some of these bike lanes get completed this year, striped? Because the heat is a factor.
Well, the striping bike lanes would be part of our pavement marking project, which we are going to be scheduling here coming up in July, August timeframe. And by then I'll have a good answer as to if we are able to hit any of these and if they make any sense. I shouldn't say make any sense. Like in the time frame of future maintenance, it doesn't make sense to stripe something this year if I see a project coming next year. I just want to make the dollars go as far as they can. So. Yes. Yes, it would be. It would be. Yep, it would be ground. The final product would be similar to what you see on Newport. Yep. So they'll grind and overlay it.
And then does that cover the whole budget for the year? I think what's the budget, 40,000?
I think it's shared with the Park District.
What is it, about a half a mile distance there? Or?
Yeah, maybe about a half mile. I think those are different budgets.
Oh, okay.
That resurfacing would be an in-house job, so that's coming out of their material budgets and $40,000, yeah, I believe it's 30, and then we get 10 from the Park District, and that's for like the bigger maintenance projects. So we do the pavement preservation, we use a little bit of that, because I try to maintain the good stuff. So, you know, and we the 40, it doesn't go that far. The 40. Well, along Stearns Road there, from Bittersweet all the way down to Kent Circle, was all recently resurfaced with the water main transmission project in 2018, and we've recently sprayed it with the pavement preserver, so, you know, the bike paths are in really good shape, I would think, from Bittersweet all the way down to Kent Circle, and then I know that the Park District just did their project within their property there, so.
Would you ever recommend using some of our MFT funds to maybe get ahead on the bike paths a little bit? I know we have a pretty good balance in our MFT funds, and I know it's always earmarked for roads and not necessarily bike paths, but let's say one year we decide to, you know, put 100 grand towards it. Do you think that would make a pretty good dent?
I do. The South Bartlett bike path that we did, was it the end of last year there by the library? You know, that was paid for with MFT dollars. We put it in the budget, and and I would also try to incorporate a lot of these bike paths into the MFT project itself.
Yeah.
You know, then we can kind of take that whole amount and focus it in one area. You know, I feel that the more money that I would take out of that MFT, there's kind of a nice balance there between the roads and the bike paths, right? So, you know, but yeah, I do think that is feasible.
Great. Is there any other questions on this topic? Then we will move on to wayfinding signage update.
After we're done with that.
Since the April meeting, staff has worked on developing a basic draft for the wayfinding signage plan. This plan would include sign design, estimated costs, as well as intersection with signage, as well as sign placement and destinations. This draft would propose the installation of signage in 2 separate phases, and these are based on jurisdiction and right-of-way.
I can continue on. Just to introduce myself, my name is Brian Kraus. I'm the new associate planner with the planning department. I work with Andrew. So when drafting this plan, we had 4 main sources. The first of which was the map that you all created, pinpointing potential locations for different signs. The second of which, we looked at a lot of other bike wayfinding signs, or wayfinding plans in other different communities in DuPage County, DuPage and Cook counties. Of course, our own bike plan was obviously a big source. The final one was a document released from by Department of Transportation, U.S. Department of Transportation, called the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, the MUTCD. That has a lot of specific guidelines when it comes to the actual design of the signs. That's something that we stayed a little bit away from. That's something that we'd want included in the final draft, obviously, is like what these signs are actually going to look like. We stayed a little bit away from that because that's not necessarily my area of expertise. You can see my rendering on the right there. This is just a draft of a draft of what the sign might look like. Don't get too attached. That's just an idea based on the guidelines in the MUTCD. More importantly, those gave us dimensions, contents. Those are the things that we focused on more. We focused primarily in this draft on the contents of the plan, of the signs, and the locations of the signs. Those are the big ones. So Andrew just mentioned that we had 2 different phases, and we're curious to hear what you guys think about this. The first 6 signs that you see up there are sign locations that we can build tomorrow. We are able to build on these locations because they're within our jurisdiction. There's no no issues trying to work with other organizations. You might notice that there's quite a few locations that were included in the map that was discussed at last meeting that aren't shown on here. Those are for two reasons primarily. One, most importantly, is jurisdictional. A lot of the signs are when in DuPage County's right-of-way or with the Park District's right-of-way, that can get trickier to build right away. The second of which is we have a lot of signs already out. One important one is the intersection between Stearns and the Illinois Prairie Path. There's already signs there from DuPage County. They point people in the direction of the Bartlett, the state park, and a few other places. So there are a lot of places that we don't need to put signs because we've already, whether they're our own or somebody else's, we already have those signs out there. Signs 7 and 8 we decided to include, despite the fact that they are in other jurisdictions. I think both of them are are within the county jurisdiction. The reason why we still included them is because they would be really beneficial. We wanted to show you guys what the two different versions of what this draft plan could look like. We could either go the route of, here are all the signs that we can do now, let's just focus up, work on those, or we could have a list of signs that we would need some sort of intergovernment agreement for, something a little bit more complicated that will take a little bit more time. We can also include those if you guys would like, but these 8 are the ones that are the most feasible, even though 7 and 8 are a little bit trickier. Let me make sure, before I get into, we'll go through all 8 of those locations really quickly. We'll work through each one. Some things I want to touch on first, going back to the MUTCD guidelines. The big takeaways from that document, obviously besides dimensions and some of those kind of specifics, it talks a lot about what the content should be. And the things that Andrew and I had talked about, the things that would be best on the signs would be obviously destination, where are we pointing people to? Some kind of directional arrow, which way do you have to turn to reach that destination, and then mileage. Now, mileage is an important measurement of space rather than travel time, because travel time might work in certain roadway signs, but people travel at vastly different speeds on shared use routes. Even if it's exclusively a bike route, people bike at very different speeds, and so you want to have something as inclusive and accessible as possible. So mileage, even if it's a little bit more abstract, that's definitely the route that we'd want to go. Those are the main 3 things that we think would be best on each of these signs. I know that we had talked previously about some sort of distinction on it, branding on the top. You'll see on the next slide my attempt. It's not anything interesting, but just to show what the signs might look like. I think we're ready to go through each of these signs. I think at the halfway point here, I want to reiterate what we'd like from you all, which is obviously any general comments, anything that we could do to improve this plan. But what we want to do is at next meeting, we want to come with a final draft. And so anything that comes up, any problems that you see with these locations, any additional locations that you want us to look into, jurisdictional or otherwise, would all be very helpful. We'd appreciate that feedback. The first sign, we had actually just talked about this location. This is corner of West Bartlett, a little bit east of Route 59. This is right where the trail, the Grasslands Trail, is going to come out. This sign is unique. This sign location, I should say, is unique from the other ones because it's the only one that currently is not at like a pivotal turning point, and not at a point where a person would have to make a decision about which way to go. Right now, the only trail that's here is going east-west along West Bartlett. There's no decision to make. You just keep going straight or you turn around. But it's the only one that's thinking ahead because that trail theoretically is going to come right out at the end. And we'll point people east to downtown and Metro, and of course you can go back the way you came towards Brewster Creek. The second one, I'll just power through these. The rest of these are a little bit more similar. The first one being an exception about it being a hypothetical. The rest of these I'll just kind of power through. I'll take comments at the end. This is Newport and Bartlett Trail. This one was important because the Bartlett Trail is a little bit hidden away with the the parking lot that's right there, right by the baseball diamonds. And so we wanted to make it clear that you could continue down, going towards downtown and Metro, going north, but also there's this great trail. If you go a little bit farther past through the parking lot, you'll be able to access the Bartlett Trail from there. Next is a little bit farther south, Newport and Stearns. Going to the west, Stearns, you can get to the community park, or the community center. Centennial Elementary is on Stearns, of course. Going north, we still have the downtown and Metro. Yeah, these are draft signs. Again, don't get too attached. These are just my thoughts about what these could look like. Stearns and South Bartlett, this one is tricky based on the jurisdictions. Looking at this image, the only segment of right-of-way that is ours is Stearns going east. Everything else is is DuPage County. So that being said, there's only really two signs that we can do right away. One facing east, so if you're traveling down Stearns Road westbound, you could go to the north to go to downtown. You can go straight to go to Beaver Pond. Of course, south to go DuPage Trail. And then, of course, another sign we could put along Bartlett Trail, not on South Bartlett or on Stearns, but along Bartlett Trail itself, to point people in towards those same destinations. Next, we have Struckman and South Bartlett right in front of the fire station. This is a big intersection, of course, because the DuPage Trail is right going around Struckman right here. But the bigger one is because this is a relatively densely populated area, we want to tell people, hey, downtown is not that far away. It's relatively close, only almost 2 miles is about the distance there. Next, traveling further west on Struckman, we have the intersection with the Bartlett Trail on the other end of it from the Stearns and South Bartlett intersection. This is a similar set of destinations people could reach to from here: DuPage Trail, Community Center, downtown. Those are the signs. This is the first of the Phase 2 signs that I was mentioning. Stearns Road at this point is DuPage County, and so we would need an intergovernment agreement to access this sign. But we thought to include it again just to show what a plan could look like if we start getting into the signs we could put with intergovernment agreements. This is one that would be very helpful because Beaver Pond is obviously very pretty. It's a great destination, but also not that far from downtown and the community center. The second one is also much closer to downtown. It's right on South Bartlett, intersection of the Bartlett Trail, just on the other side of the sign we had mentioned earlier on Newport, straight line right across to the west, to the east, excuse me. This is one where directing people towards downtown and Metro, and of course the community center would be a great way to sort of link the whole network together if we have these signs located at all these different intersections of the trail. I believe that is all the locations. I'll go back to the map just to show the summary of all 8 locations, and we'd love to hear your feedback.
Any comments from the committee?
I actually don't recall what the earlier discussion was, but the other signs that were presented in past meetings were not really uniform, so I really like the uniformity of it because it's easy to pick up when you're going from town to town to town. The eye comes right to it, so I like that, and it's a great start. I think we can add more if necessary.
I agree with that.
Yeah, you clearly put a lot of thought into it, and that's fantastic. Just one comment. Are these front and back signs, like on one post? Is it front and back?
That was something.
Just one side only?
Yeah, that was something that we'd consider. In this, we did one side only, just for simplicity's sake. We wanted to, it gets a little bit of a spatial exercise in trying to rationalize which way you're looking at signs. And so we decided, let's split signs, let's make sure that every single direction is covered, regardless of which way you're looking at. But once we get into the actual design of the signs, that's definitely something we could look at, whether it be cost saving or, what have you. I think there's lots of options of what we could do to. Yeah.
And like, for example, like the first one, the facing west, sample 1A, yeah, right there. Like instead of having the third sign being Brewster Creek with a down sign,
Yeah.
put that on the back side with an up, just,
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's minor, I know it's minor, and I'm sure there's a lot more work to it than what I'm talking about, but just to make it a little less busy, I guess.
And it makes more sense to not have like a turnaround,
Yeah.
like when you're going and then it says, oh, back that way, to have it on the other side.
That sort of gets to one thing that I didn't include here, but we did also look at pricing, very, very loose estimates based on the size requirements listed in the MUTCD and an estimate from Nick about it being roughly $40 to $50 a square foot per sign and then $100 per post. Let's see if I actually have the numbers in front of me. It's a very loose estimation, but that's the same sort of thing. That sort of went to the logic of why we did individual signs. That math is a little bit easier. But when coming back with the final plan, we'll have, obviously that will need to be much more thoroughly, but we wanted to do a temperature read.
You did a very nice job putting this, or assembling this. My only question would be is these will all be printed in-house, correct?
Yes. Yeah. That was the other part of simplicity, is making it as easy, not only for readability's sake, but also being able to do it in-house is very much more convenient.
Well,
I have another question for the committee. What do we think about the two different options, whether to do a plan that is very dedicated towards towards presenting the signs that we're able to build immediately without any sort of intergovernment agreement, or should we include signs like 7 and 8 and even more that we find that would be require some sort of intergovernment agreement or something that takes a little more time or more manpower?
yeah, I mean, I think we should hit the ground running and do what we can now.
Yeah.
And then phase in and work with the other governments to,
Agreed, you can do what you can now, and, you know, some intergovernmental agreements may take forever versus local stuff.
Great, thank you.
you guys agree?
I agree. The community would like to see this type of action quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's the time frame for this now?
Our plan was to take this document, take any feedback that we get and polish it up, make it so that it's not quite so rough looking, a little bit cleaner. We'll talk more with the sign printers, any other installation problems or anything else that we might have. We want to get all that ironed out. Cost, obviously, we'll have to figure out. So we're going to ready for the next meeting, we'll have a final draft ready to go.
Very good.
Very good. Any other questions? Any new business or comments?
I got a couple things,
Okay.
as usual. I had a resident give me, actually, basically a website of what La Crosse, Wisconsin does. It's quite a elaborate plan. I plan to forward it to Kim for distribution to the board and have the chairman decide if it's something he wants to include for discussion in future meetings. It's very involved, and I'm not suggesting we go there, but we might be able to steal bits and pieces from it because it looks like a well laid out plan. And aside from that, residents get to look at it too. So they did quite a nice job, and I'll leave it at that, and I'll send it forward and ask that it be distributed. Couple things. I ride closer to my house. Spalding Road by the railroad tracks, is that county, township, or what is that?
Spalding Road at,
In between the tracks and right on either side, what's it, Canadian Pacific and Metra West Line?
Spalding and what?
Spalding and two sets of railroad tracks. West end of town, button up against Elgin. Could even be Elgin for that matter.
is Elgin, I'm
Is that where we
trying
just
to
did the
think
quiet
where the divide is at.
A long time ago, yeah.
Has it been that long?
8 years? 10 years?
I've been on the board for 10. Wow.
I've been living out there the whole time, so thank you.
Yeah, I think that might be our jurisdiction, because we did the quiet zone there.
Did do the quiet zone. For some reason, I'm thinking it's that first set of tracks. If you're heading west and you hit that first set of tracks. No, because that's where the quiet zone is. Maybe it ends at that second zone of tracks. We have a jurisdictional maps, I just don't have it on me.
Okay, I'll just leave this, I think, because it'll get more attention coming from the village than me. Right on the west side of the Metro tracks, and it seems worse since they redid the crossing, you got a giant 3 or 4 inch puddle every time it rains over there. The road's depressed. I mean, already it's difficult to get around on a bicycle if you're out there riding and there's car traffic, train traffic, et cetera. I don't expect that Elgin or anyone else is going to want to improve that area for a while, but eventually it'll need it. So that's habitual, pretty much every rainfall, and it's on the south side of what that car park business would be over there, and just on the west side of tracks. And then the path up close to the church across from Villa Olivia, behind the trees, so you don't see it unless you walk down the path or ride the path. Peaks, valleys, I mean, this much tree roots have made the path unsafe, so I believe that's Bartlett put that in, or at least they had the developer put it in when they built the church. So just an FYI. That's all I have.
Is that path going to connect eventually to those new subdivisions that are built? You know what I'm talking about? Is it the path just east of Villa Olivia, that church?
Yeah, it goes,
That path goes and then it just literally stops.
I use it to cross the street over there and go to Villa Olivia, but
Is there an opportunity that we can extend that to the new path that's being run from West Bartlett north across the tracks and connect that eventually? You know what I'm saying?
I think that is eventually possible, yes. There is one gap. I believe there's one gap through there, and there's one property left to be developed, because yes, from the church, I want to say it's continuous all the way to a certain spot, and then it gaps that property, and then it continues up just north of Spalding.
Maybe at the next meeting, we can get a map and maybe like an update of what the possibilities could be.
Sure.
and I know they have Route 20 reconstruction. I'm not sure it comes that far east, the total reconstruction, so I don't know where bike paths come in. I don't remember what the document said, but I know they're doing everything down to, I still call it Level Road, what's it called? Shales Parkway. They're gonna redo that whole interchange and make it an overpass and cloverleaf and so forth. I know they're gonna improve Route 20 along that area, but I don't know if it includes bike paths. It'd be an opportunity to connect if so.
I want to say there's a Route 20 plan out there that's got a lot of bike paths.
Yes.
I've seen it.
Do they connect, I guess?
Could we include that in our next meeting also, the Route 20 construction, and check out the bike paths?
Yeah, the village did quite a good, I've got the file somewhere here. The village had a presentation here, so I don't know if you guys.
Yeah, I want to say I have
don't remember it.
some preliminary engineering plans on that whole project. I think they're maybe in phase 1 right now, so I can take a look and see if I can find those plans, and those plans would show any of the plans for the bike path on there too, so.
It'll be a while,
Bring
but it's
that for the
not
next one.
possible to get to Elgin other than going down to West Bartlett Road up 25 at this time. You can't even sneak through the back way through. You'd have to go through private property to get over to Elgin. And that's not really doable. 20, no one's going to go on 20 if they're in their right mind.
Any other comments?
I've got a couple things.
Sure.
I noticed that there wasn't a forest preserve update. Is that, you know why there wasn't a forest preserve update?
There was no update from what I'm aware.
Okay. And so this, I'm going to kind of piggyback that question into a bigger question about collaboration with Wayne Township. So I know Wayne Township's got a lot of stuff going on. There are two particular paths, particularly one on Klein Road that is going out to bid. We're going out for grant approvals. And I know the Village of Bartlett's already given a letter, so that, you know, we've done everything we can there. There's also something that came up rather quickly, a potential path along Powis. And I guess my take on that is I know it's on our plan, you know, it's a roadway path is on our plan, but this was presented as not a free path, but hey, we're going to build a path. Would you support this? And I know it's not in Bartlett's on the list. It's probably not in the top 10 of paths, But when someone else is gonna fund it, and all we have to do is pay 20%, that just seems like a very good return on investment to me. And I know, again, it's not it doesn't fill a gap that we're looking for. Just my comment there, that's,
But would it fill a gap of riders?
oh,
Would
for
pe-
sure.
Would
yeah,
people
for sure,
use
for sure.
it?
And part of the problem is it would terminate at Stearns on the north end, so it would basically go from Army Trail across the tracks to Stearns, and it would stop there. And I know the path on Stearns is still in planning.
Okay.
So we don't want to build anything that terminates. But I think we have to not just discount it because it's going to stop and it'll be a path to nowhere. We have to look big term, long term into the future that, hey, this Stearns path is, you know, depends who you talk to, it's in a varying degree of acceptance. And if that happened, that would be such a great addition that people don't even know exists right now. I don't know, just my comment. You guys any feedback on that, or?
Well, is this on the staff's radar at all?
So I do know that, I believe it was West Chicago that had reached out, and they were looking for letters of support for the resurfacing project. And I know that we wrote them a letter of support for the resurfacing project, just because if they're gonna be out there, we have about a half-mile stretch of Powys out there from the tracks to Stearns is ours. I think it's about around a half mile. And we said, well, if you guys are gonna be out there resurfacing, you might as well just continue on down to Stearns. And so I know that we have that on the radar. I haven't heard anything about the bike path. I just thinking off the top of my head, I know that you have the railroad tracks there, and we might be on the hook, just sort of like on Naperville Road for the crossing. I don't know, I think it might be Canadian National who owns those. So, you know, the design of the at-grade crossing, we'd have to get approval from them, you know, before we can commit really any serious financial, you know, any money, serious money. So we'd have to get approval from them. I know that there's some wetlands out that area. I'd have to make sure that, you know, we have to look into the FEMA maps and make sure that we're not going through any floodplains or floodways or any kind of protected areas. And again, these are just thoughts that are coming off the top of my head when we mentioned Powys. That money, the 20% match would come from the MFT funds.
I realize it wasn't in the capital plan.
Sure.
When an opportunity like this presents itself, sometimes you have to change your plans, right? And this, I think, would be a great opportunity to add essentially 2.5 mile stretch of trail at a very minimal cost that crosses a railroad track. That's my opinion. So I think, and so to kind of piggyback off my original comment, I think we should collaborate more with the Wayne Township. Like maybe even have a Wayne Township update in this meeting. And you know, they don't need to be here. Maybe just via email even.
No, let's have him here.
And I'm fine with that. I mean, I know, you know, the timing
Yeah.
for people doesn't always work, but.
DuPage used to have a rep here. I don't remember which, maybe Forest Preserve?
Yeah, Forest Preserve, yeah, they did. Jessica Ortega would usually come. And I know she emailed the last couple updates, which is fine. I'll take an email update from Wayne as well, but I think we should open that to a two-way street. My second and final comment is about e-bikes. I don't know if you guys have ridden the limestone trails lately. I'm noticing a lot of like burnouts and like brake torque where they spin the tire up and they're leaving ruts in these trails. And I just wonder what our options are for maintaining or enforcing some type of
Enforcement.
I don't know, Dan, help me out here,
It'd be an enforcement nightmare, but you gotta, it's like speeding autos in a subdivision. You gotta be right there when the violation's occurring, and unless you post somebody there, when people behave when there's a squad car there, they don't behave the rest of the time, so it's.
okay.
I don't know, in general, I'm an e-bike guy, but not self-propelled, just, it helps me get through hills and wind now. The self-propelled ones, I think there's different classifications.
Yep.
And we might, probably a good topic for discussion in a future meeting, what, if any, restrictions we can place on that kind of thing, because Some of those e-bikes are more like motorcycles than they
Yeah,
are
that's the ones
bicycles.
I'm talking about, like the ones that are pedal assist, I'm not worried about those, it's the ones that they literally have the throttle. And
Yeah.
you literally, start spinning the tire up, and when it's wet especially, they're leaving ruts. I don't know. Just, I guess I'm bringing it more to keep an eye on it, and if there's a policy, I know at some point, somebody.
Can we get that on the next agenda?
Yeah.
Like an e-bike classification?
Classifications?
This is always something we can research as well and see what other municipalities are doing.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I think would be a good start in terms of,
And maybe what, if any, restrictions other towns have
Yep.
implemented?
yep.
I'm not sure that we own or maintain any limestone paths, so I'd have to check into that. I know lots of the limestone paths are usually in the forest preserves. I don't believe we have any in town, so I can definitely check on that, but I have to check with our street supervisor, but I don't believe that we own any.
Okay, fair enough.
So enforcement of it would be more of, I think, maybe a maintenance question to bring up to the forest preserve, and I'm sure, that I would hope that they're aware of these things also, if, when they see these divots in there, so.
A truck out there the other day, I was a forest worker, they were literally paying workers to patch these holes. I'm like, really? Anyway, and it's probably kids that don't understand the ramifications, but when we just spent $2 million on the Munger Trail, and there's burnouts on it, it's a little disheartening, I'm good.
All right, any other comments, concerns? All right, I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting until September 26th.
Second?
I'll ask staff to call the roll.
Adam Hopkins,
Yes.
Eric Kroll. Yes. Dan Palmer,
Yes.
John Getz. Yes. Jay Doherty.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys. Great presentation.